I drive past this thing twice every day. It's been in the same spot for over a year, and there was a for sale sign at it at some point. So I stopped in this morning and I said, what's the story with this man lift? And it's a sweet old lady. She's about in her 80s, 90s. The man lift is completely out of place there. She goes, some guy went and cut my trees about a year ago and just left his machine there. So I tracked down who the owner was, I know who he is, and said, what's the deal? He goes, it won't run. I'm like, do you realize she called the cops on you already as like abandoned property and wants to get rid of this thing? I'm like, you want me to see if I can get it started for her? He goes, yeah, if you want, you can go start that. So I'll see if I can get it started, bring it home, fix my shingles, bill him to fix it. It's kind of mean, maybe give some of the ladies some of the money back for storage for a year of a big ugly man lift in her yard. And it's fun, why not? Here we go. All right, so we got an upright boom, and the magic is it gas or is it diesel? Oh, spark plugs. But we got a coil so we can check for spark. We got a starter so we can crank it over. Should be pretty straightforward. I probably need a few things. There's some nuts and bolts laying there and no prop rod. Let's see what else we got. Been painted. Never a good sign. You got your controls. Well, that's why it won't start. It needs one of these things. So that would be fuel. Got a little bypass pump here. And that looks to be fuel. That doesn't look great, but we will hook that up, see what happens. I'll grab one out of my truck and here we go. All right, so I got battery in. Get a couple positive cables. This one goes to the starter on the engine. Then this goes to a relay, which goes to a fuse, which goes to another starter here that runs a hydraulic pump as like a backup when that engine can't run. And none of these cables are labeled. So we got 1, 2, power. I got 1, 2, 3 grounds, another 1, 2, 3 grounds, and another one wire going to that positive. I need to have the key on the ground controls, and luckily that thing is broken where I can just jam some generic key in there and turn it. That's great. Got power there. When I pull this on, the levers move a little bit, so that's good. If I hear this fuel pump running, I'm getting close, because that means I've got ignition. The one wire I followed goes back here, and that's the ground on the back of the bell housing. The other one comes to here. So we'll jump this, see if we got power here. That's good. Got a little bit of power there. Most of those are connected. So we'll go to the control. The control needs to have the switch for whether the controls are whether the machine is being operated from here or down below. Needs to be in the same spot. I think that's this one. So this is probably off. Actually, I can hear the fuel pump running. Fuel pump's running. So that means we're getting fuel. That probably means we have ignition. And I'm thinking the battery died and they took this off and they forgot which hoses went or which cables went where. And they just couldn't get it going. So we got hour meter reading now. That's good. Try and start it. Nothing. Okay. Function enable maybe. That sucks. It stopped. Let's try it again. Oh! It started to go there. Did you hear that? It's probably bad fuel. I heard a little bit of a puff, so I think it's going. No, I think I can see fuel up to there. Let's see if we've got fuel. We'll pull, make sure we got fuel going here. Imagine that goes to some sort of carburetor thingy. I wonder if it's stuck on propane. All right, I'm gonna have to get some fresh fuel. It's been here a while. Kind of looks liquidy. Let's try it from the boom, see if that works. Oh, still running. Huh. But now that does nothing. All right, let's try the boom. All right, if the horn works. Auxiliary. Okay, so that works. That's up. Where's the starter? Oil. The auxiliary power, we can make it go up if we want, but I don't want to kill my battery. It's probably throttle. Where's the starter? That's kind of cool. It's clicking now, but that's a good battery. I know it's not dead. It's clearly labeled right there. I think that's on. Good oil pressure. That sounded better. Let's go get some brake clean. I gotta take the battery back in, put it back in my truck. I'm gonna grab some brake clean, spray that in there. There's a little squirt coming out there. It smells like about 75 octane, should be good. Okay, so two things. I found this, which is a bad wire, but I think this is a rectifier for the charging system maybe, because this wire goes up to the alternator, but it wants to start and then it quits, and this is a Murphy switch. So these ones, this oil pressure sensor, which feeds the gauge, and this one, if it loses oil pressure, will shut off, which is kind of the way it's acting. It wouldn't start until you kept cranking it. You build oil pressure, these should fire it. I might jump these together then and see what that does, but first we'll check if we got spark. You don't always see this spark, even in the dark, but you do feel it if you take it off. 40,000 volts, hard to deny. It's got spark, but it is fuel injected, and I think the propane, something might have happened with stuck on propane, so it's not firing the fuel injector or the Murphy switch. Let's do the Murphy switch first. We'll bypass those. Okay, so it's fuel injected, which goes to this pink wire. This pink wire splits off and goes to the fuel pump. The fuel pump is running, so it's this relay. I pop this relay out, and that's what activates the fuel injectors. And I had power, I had 2 powers and 1 ground, meaning that this relay should have clicked on. And this relay, it's hard to tell when you click it in place, because it snaps into place because of this. You can't really tell whether it's clicking or not. So I swapped it with this one, and we'll see what happens. Battery's not great anymore either, but it wants to go, but it doesn't. And there's a bad connection there too. I think I'm like priming the fuel injectors, but they're not staying lit. And I bet if I do this, it'll go again, because now I sprayed a bunch of fuel in there. Come on. See, this isn't good either, this wiring. Okay, so here's what I think happened. This relay went bad, and that relay also turns on the fuel pump, and I think that this is not the right fuel pump. I think that this one, because it's fuel injected and not carbureted, somebody's replaced this because it looks brand new compared to everything else. This is not the proper wiring for this. This is not the way it's supposed to. I think that fuel pump just does not have the oomph to fire those injectors. So now I gotta go home, make some phone calls to the owner. I'm gonna take my battery back because it's pretty low, and then we will figure it out from there. But I'm thinking this is the culprit because that relay went bad. All right, so called the owner. I asked, did you replace the fuel pump? He goes, yes, I did. I said, give me the old one. Do you still have the old one? This is like a year ago. He goes, yep, I do. I said, we'll give it back because that fuel pump is not enough to fire those injectors. So, Saturday afternoon, just screwing around, having some fun. I wanted to diagnose something. No real tools, no fuel pressure tester, just a voltmeter. Process of elimination. We need air, fuel, and spark. We got spark. We got a little bit of fuel, just not enough fuel. Fuel injected, figure out why, trace it back, and there we go. We got power where there's supposed to be power when we hot wired it. One bad relay. It's a $4 part, and this person lost about a year's worth of rental on this machine, which is usually about 2,000 bucks a week. Do the math. Be good to your neighborhood mechanic. All right, so we're back at the Upright. I got a battery that I think might work, and I was told there's going to be a fuel pump waiting for me. Let's see if that's right. Imagine this is it. And if you look at that size compared to that size, there's a big difference there. All right, got the pump half-ass in there. See if it wants to go. I'm not sure about that pump. I have it hooked up right. It's still a fuel issue, and I'm wondering if that pump is just no good. Well, that doesn't sound good. You had it there for a second. I think we need a new pump. Okay, so I don't have a fuel pump, inline fuel pump. I do have a in-tank fuel pump, but it doesn't fit through the filler neck. So I grabbed my water jug, siphoned some fuel into there. Let's see if that does it. Got my filter return. Oh, that is not a good sign. That's the longest that it's run. I'm out of fuel. Well, that went quick. I did some homework online. I found a manual with some wiring schematics, and but they were all for the diesels, none for the gas. So, who buys gas, honestly? Nobody wants spark plugs. I still think this is my problem here. That would be the oil pressure sensor that would shut it off if it doesn't see oil pressure. I don't know how it works. So for now, I'm going to try and bypass the injectors. We're going to go full send here. I'm just going to, these are the two grounds coming out of the computer, and this is the power coming out of the computer. Going to hotwire that and fire it up and drive it home. I have an escort coming with some flashing lights not too far down the road, and hopefully we get it home tonight. We're not going to worry about fixing it right now. We're just going to get it home tonight, and then we'll worry about it. Traffic is busier than I hoped. It's kind of the end of the day. I thought it would settle down a little bit, but we'll try and fire it up and see what happens. Here we go. My escort has arrived. Slow and steady, but boy, is she running rich. I hope I don't foul the plugs before I get home. I can see my driveway. All right, so I got it home. It's the next day. It started getting dark and the battery died. Got it home just in time. No issues. But not that I would recommend driving it down the highway, but we're home. Now the reason I brought it home is because I drive past this thing twice every day. It's been here for it's been in the same spot for over a year. Nobody could get the machine going. A couple people looked at it. They didn't try that hard. Somebody stole the battery out of it, and it was an awkward spot where they couldn't even tow it. If you were to tow it, just to get that out of the way, it's very simple. You take this cap off, you turn it around, this detent pushes on the drive and disconnects the hydrostat, or disconnects the wheel so you can tow it. I'm not sure if you can turn the steering with the auxiliary power, but because the battery was disconnected and there was a slew of wires on it, it was not working, and it isn't working even though I got all the wires right. The lady that had this in her driveway was already called the cops twice, called it abandoned property, was going through the courts to try and figure out what she can do. But honestly, there's nothing that anybody can do. Towing these things is very special and unique, and nobody wanted to do anything about it. I got a hold of the owner, and we're figuring out whether to fix it or whatnot. I just wanted it off her property. So it's actually fuel injected, but it acts like a throttle body injection system. So it sprays fuel into a generic intake that spreads it out between the runners. It doesn't have individual injectors for the individual cylinders. All I did was take the power that fed the relays, which turn on the injectors. I gave it direct power. This relay turns on this relay and fires both injectors. And the computer has two grounds coming out of the computer that actually pulses the injector. All I did was take one, vice grip it to a ground, turn the injectors on, it sprayed fuel in, ran rich like crazy, but enough to fire it up, get it home, and get it out. Okay, so we got a few issues. Upright is no longer in business. I think Snorkel bought them out, but Upright itself does not make parts anymore and is not a business anymore. This, I believe, is a shut-off for the gas if it has no oil pressure. I monkeyed around with it, tried moving it around to try and hotwire that to think that it does have oil pressure. I think there's also a crankshaft position sensor on it, and if either one of these goes, it will not run. It'll fire up and then it'll quit. The fuel pump was definitely an issue, but if you guys have any information on this, if you know these machines, if you know what to look for or where to go for parts, definitely comment down below. I'm sure I'll make another video on this because I don't want to hear forever. I have some uses for it. We got a lot of gypsy moth I got to cut out of the trees. But for now, I'm going to go back in the shop, finish up a few things, and there will be another video on this coming up because one way or another, I have to make a video on it running properly somehow. So thanks for watching.